Right. First of all, let me talk about the program. This is mainly focused on the corporate sector, especially people come with a different background and those who wants to pursue career in data analytics. So I already know that you have some background in data analytics using different tools, but those who want to switch to Python based, right? And hopefully at the end of the program, you should have the required skill you to pursue the career in data analytics. So that's mainly the purpose of the program. And after completing this one, so you will have the understanding of the basic programming structures, constructs in Python, as well as there are a lot of libraries used in machine learning and data analytics. So we will cover main one so that you are familiar. We are familiar with, to start your career in data analytics. Right, here are the topics. As I told you, like this is the Python programming. Main focus is given for the Python programming, and also aiming that once you finish the module, you will have the necessary background to start in data analytics. So we will covering up basics, and then we will look at the input outputs, how to handle inputs and also the outputs, control structures, data structures, which means we will discuss different ways of handling data. So the basic list and list comprehension is very important if you want to analyze the data. Then we talk about the modularization, writing your own modules, functions and modules in Python, which is the basis to, reuse existing modules. And OOP concepts in very briefly we will, discuss, because everything built on in Python in classes. So you should have some basic, background on OOP concepts. So we will look at that one. Then last three topics are very relevant to data analytics. Like we start with the NumPy, numerical Python package in Python, where we look at how you use for data manipulation. And then visualization, we started with Matplotlib, which is those who already done MATLAB. So this is the very same visualization module we will use in Python as well, and that is the basis, quite popular in Python as well. And finally we will also look at the basic data analytics, basic data manipulation, as well as using basic machine learning algorithms. So with that, we believe that this will give you the necessary skills as well as knowledge you to build up your data science, data analytics career. Any questions you will have about the contents? Okay, thanks. If you have any, please let us know. Right, before we discuss more, let me introduce the software tools that I actually planned for this training program. The first few sessions I'll be using standard Python environment, which comes from the standard Python installation. So today I will discuss that. Then after finishing that one, we are going to switch to what we call Jupyter notebooks, which is a notebook like, which means you can keep your text as well as your Python codes as a single unit, which is quite popular in data analytics. So nowadays, if you look for people work on this area, mostly they use everything built on top of what we call the Jupyter notebooks. So there are two environments are there, like Google Colab if you have a Gmail, and definitely Google comes with Jupyter notebook built in their virtual environment, which is called Google Colab. And if you want to have it in physically offline, then you can install what we call Jupyter Lab, right? Both I will discuss, but mainly I will, as a beginner, I want you to start with a Google Colab. So initially, I think you should not really worry about the installation, how to work with the package and so on. But because first you should expose to the technology, and once you are familiar, then I think you can go for offline version. So this is the tool sets that I'm going to introduce for you for Python programming. Now, those who keen on the references I will use, the first two is on Python programming, and the very first one is quite popular one and freely available, and this particular reference actually comes as a Think Python, quite popular series, and if you visit to this link, you can even download the PDF version, which goes from beginning to the very end, meaning like how do you think like a computer scientist. So I highly recommend, in case if you want to know more details about the Python, I think you should think about reading this. Mainly that focus on the theoretical aspect of Python programming. But if you, let's say your aim is to learn the technology, like means the use of Python programming, then maybe you can go for Python tutorial, and there are many tutorials out there. But so W3 schools have one such place where you can start like learning the Python code. So depend on your interest, you can actually use the first two references for Python programming. The third reference actually for machine learning. Now remember, you are working in the industry, and then you should know like the deploying machine learning models, and also like industry level creating industry level machine learning models. So in such case, I highly recommend Andronac's machine learning yarning, which is a book written looking at the practical aspect of machine learning. So this is also freely available, and he talks about every machine learning aspect you should know to start your data science career. So these are the three references I will recommend, but there are many YouTube videos, free courses out there. But in my case, I always run this course as a hands-on session, which means I talk about the theory and then we'll practice it, and then try to help you in case if you are struggling with hand-on exercises. So always let me know if when you present the problems, and if you got stuck, you feel free to contact me. I will try my best to help you to work on those. Right. So that's about the references. Right. So I think let's start today's session. So my plan for today is I'll be discussing the very basics, the basics in Python. Things like variables, operators, and especially the precedence, and finally the data types. If time permits, I will also going to discuss a little bit about the input and output. So that depends on how many questions I might get from you. Right. Okay. So now, if you're wondering why Python programming language, there are many features in Python, why it is popular now, right? Sometime back, Python actually had, kind of a fluctuate in the popularity among the programmers, which I will share. But I think now, with the computing and all these features, were now highly useful for the data science and analytics community, and because of that it's quite popular compared to any other programming language. Now some of them let me highlight. Like one thing is, it's very simple programming language. For example, if you know Java, for example, if you compare Java syntax and Python syntax, it will be very simple. And then it's easy to learn as well. Usually your learning curve compared to a language like Java or C could be very easy. That's the reason why it is popular among various different sectors, right? People talk about nowadays converting, specialists into data scientists. Instead of data scientists is separately going and work on a business project. And another interesting point, it used everywhere. Like once you have Python, you can run Python in your mobile phone. And if you look at the very high performance computers like supercomputers, so it will run on Python. Definitely it's free and open source, which means like it's freely available. And also if you want to extend, it's easy because the code is available. Right, and then final parts. It's object oriented, it's extensible, meaning like if there are no features that you see in Python, you can extend existing Python programming techniques using language like using C. And then it has an extensive library, so that's what I want to highlight. So tell me any area, like nowadays I can suggest you a Python module for that, right? Starting from quantum computing to robotics, IoT, all these places now Python is quite popular, right? And this supports with the ranking as well. Now Cube Index is a ranking which is used to rank available programming languages. And if you compare the rankings in November 2021, Python is in the top position, right? And you can see like what are the popular languages, and some of the languages that you use, you can see where the ranks are. So you will see now actually Python beats even C compared to like couple of months back. And if the same thing, if you look at it, these are the three popular top 3 programming languages, Python, C and Java. According to their index, you now see Python is now popular compared to both C and Java, right? So I'm not going to underestimate C or Java, so you have advantages over Python. But then again, like if you are thinking about the data analytics project, I think Python is way to go. Right. Another thing is, if you learn Python, right, you can work in different areas. Like you can go for web development, you can go for game development, mobile, data analytics, even embedded, right? So you learn one programming language and you can use it in various different fields. That is one of the other thing that we need to discuss. Especially if you look at data analytics, you see R, Python, MATLAB are commonly used. But then again, if it is data, now Python is quite popular compared to even R and MATLAB. Right. Okay, here are some of the Python libraries that I briefly go through, right? So because this is the beginner course, which I will give you basics to Python, and then I will talk about some of these in the last sessions, right? So we will start looking at, for example, NumPy, Matplotlib, and also scikit-learn. I might not be able to talk about the TensorFlow and Keras, for example, which we might need to talk about in a little bit more advanced, training program. Right. Other useful resources. Now, if you are keen on artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, Python and R, so KD Nuggets is a place where to start with. So it talks about the theory, it talks about the software packages, it talks about the jobs, and everything is one single place. This actually site maintained by one of the top data science scientists, and I think this is where you to start with. So you can start looking at kdnuggets.com, and they'll come up with all these required resources for you to start your career. The second thing that you need to have for a data science career is data sets, right? If you are authorized to use your data, you can use it for data analytics. But let's say you are not authorized, then there are already available data set for the analysis. Like Kaggle is one place where the competition happens in various different fields, and there they will provide you access to those data, right? And then again, there's a machine learning repository we call UCI repository. In UCI also there are a lot of publicly available data, and if you look at the business domain, then there are some business domain data sets as well, right? So these are just to to start with, because within this 5 weeks time, I want you to transform you to a data scientist or data analytics, right? Okay, now I think we talk about enough why Python is quite popular, and let's start looking at now the Python program itself. So it is a high level programming language like C, C++, Perl and Java, which means it will very similar to simple English terms we will use in commands. But then again, we need to transform that into binary form if you want to run it. And it happens in an interpreted way, which means like it will convert couple of lines into machine language. But one thing you need to remember in Python programming, you have two modes, like interactive mode and script mode. Similar to MATLAB. Those who already know MATLAB, you have you can use MATLAB as a calculator, and then you can use MATLAB script. So similarly, in Python also we have the same. You have interactive mode as well as you have a script mode, right? Okay, and then what we are going to do is we are going to build programs using Python. So that program could be simple solving a particular equation, or maybe like finding roots, or maybe you work with some text documents, or even like data analytics problem, right? So that we want to come up with that, right? So let's start looking at our first program. The very first one I'm going to talk about is a hello world, actually using Python. So let me start with the interactive mode. But before that, I want to ask a question from the audience participant. Like, how many of you have already installed Python? Can you raise your hand? I hope in Teams you can raise your hands. Good. We have Manoj, Chintaka. Okay, Niromi, Nuwan. Right. Okay. I hope only 4 is having Python installed. Right. So let's start with the Python installation then. Right. Those who have already have, I think you can wait for some time. Yes, I want to share the whole screen. Right. So let me share the screen too. Okay. Hope can you see the browser?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. So go to www.python.org. Right. So this is the URL that you need to visit, www.python.org, where the official Python page. So that's the first part. Now once you enter, right? You can see a place like this, and then you need to come to this point first. Now let's say you have issue of installing Python, so we can use the interactive shell available in the Python official page. So let me show you first how to use this. If you click this button, yellow button, so you will get a virtual environment which we call online console, and then you are ready to go, right? It's actually waiting for our command, right? Let me type. So I'm going to type, let's say, in the prompt, right, print, and within single quote, I will type a message, right, hello world. Right, now press enter. You should see this hello world message in this virtual console. Again, if you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands so that I know that you have finished the task. Right, now we have Pranavan, Amila, Manoj, Terasi, Lavesha, right. Everybody now you know there's an interface, virtual environment in python.org, official Python page, which you can use. Right, how about Asanka? Chintaka, Darshita, Sasika. If you get stuck, come in, please let me know. Yes, Manoj. So what I did, I went to this website www.python.org, which will give us Python official page, and there's a yellow button. When you click that yellow button, you will get this. Right, I can refresh if you want. Right, this is how it look like. When you click this one, you can use the interactive shell here. Good. Okay, you can lower the hands. Thanks a lot. Next one, let's install. Right, so in my machine I have already installed, but yeah, let me try. So go to downloads. Here you have a downloads button, and usually automatically it will select the best installation file for us. In my case it says download for Windows. In my machine I have a Windows machine, and the latest Python version, Python 3.10.0. Simply you can click. When you click it, you should get the file. So let's try to install this. So I'm going to click this. Once you click, you will see here that it's downloading. Right. Now once the download is finished, double click. I'm going to double click. Now in my case it comes as a modify setup because I have already installed. But in your case, if you have not already installed, then it will be an installation. Right. let me uninstall, because I want to show you like how exactly this happened. So I'm going to uninstall Python from my system, and then I'm trying again, right? So others, you can simply start installation. You can go next. You don't have to change anything. Go next, next, next. Finally, it got installed in your system. Right. Now, those who already finished this, can you please raise your hands? And already you installed earlier, you can also raise your hands. So I know that you are now ready. You have installed. Right. Now let me start my installation again. So I will go to my downloads page. Right now I can install from the beginning, so I will click in my installation. Okay, now it should comes this like this. Install Python 3.10.0. In my case it's 64-bit. I'm just going to click install now. Nothing to worry about. Usually it will install everything we need.
Yes, doctor. Small concern that system is not allowing us to install software. Let me try.
Okay. So in that particular case, I recommend you go through the online console.
Okay.
Yeah, you can offline, you can see, or otherwise you can get the help the technical team next time. For today's session, I think this is enough. We can manage, you should be able to manage with the online console. Right. So now it says the setup was successful. Right now I can close this. I can open the file. So I'm going to click. Now previously what happened? We have typed the commands here, but every time you need, you have to, type the command again and again. So when you have a script, meaning you will take a new window, type whatever you want, right? Let me say print hello world, right? Let's say that's all for the script. The next step is you can save, because it's a script. Script means we are going to save it as a file, right? I'm going to choose save, and then I will go to, let's say, desktop. Maybe I will create a new folder, right? Let me use, let's say, dialog. Let me put 4 here, right? Now I am in desktop dialog 4 folder. Then I'm going to type a file name. Let's say I'm going to say program 1, and I will just enter. So when I press enter, you will see here that I will have the file name program 1 Python, and now it's stored in the folder that I have created. If you have done up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Right. Now you can select run module, and what will happen? You have already put your commands and you save it as a file. Now when you run it, you see the outcome here in this shell, right? So that's why actually I split the screen and put these two together. One side I have the file, one side I have the shell, right? So when I say, okay, run module, now you can see the output comes here. It says, okay, restart C desktop under dialog 4. This is program 1.python, and here is the outcome, hello world. Now let me update the file a bit. I will add one more print statement. Let's say print. I'm going to say, okay, welcome to Python programming, right? So that means I have updated the file. I'm going to select file save. Now I have saved the file changes. Then I'll go to run module, and you can see in the interactive shell you will get the result. Now this time I have two print statements. So the first one I'm getting hello world. Second one I'm getting welcome to Python programming. Now the interesting point is, if you want to rerun, you can simply run module. It's not like use of interactive session, right? You can easily rerun your code. In interactive session, always you have to type the command. So if you are developing a program, what you need to do is you write it as a script, you put it to a new window, meaning new script, save it, and then you run it. Okay? Those who have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Okay, that's good. I think we have done both the interactive shell. So now we can discuss a little bit of theory. Right. Now, as I told you earlier, there are two modes. We have seen interactive mode, that means the idle. Script mode means you get it as a separate window and you will save it. Okay. So that's what we are going to do. Right. Okay. So it's already actually given in the handout and you will get this. So you don't have to take down this. So first program, if you use interactive shell, interactive mode, you type hello world, and when you press enter, you get the result. So this is a Python statement and this is the output you are getting. Okay. Right. So if you want to write a script mode, these are the steps. You go to idle, you choose file new window, you type whatever the code, then you are going to say file save and provide a file name, and then you say run module. Shortcut key for this is F5. So function keys, if you choose the fifth function key, it will run the program, right? So this was the program, right? I have not put this line, but I told you Python could be run in anywhere when you develop. You can run on Windows, Linux and Mac. But if you, this first line, whatever I have typed here is needed, for example, in Linux to run the Python program. Right. So description is also given to you. The line 1 is a special case. If you want to run the program in Linux and Unix system, you can include this. But since I'm actually using Windows, then you don't need to, right? And the line 2 is the print function, right? So I think I have slowly gone through what this. And then the help we have already discussed. You can get the help, you can use help print, which will display help for print function. Right. And if you need a general help, you can just simply say help and the brackets. Let me show you that. So I go to my shell, and if I type help without anything inside, it will give you a general help like this. So you see it's a general help, meaning like the prompt is slightly different this time. Yes, prompt is slightly different. It says help. Now when you have this one, you don't have to type anything. You just simply type the command that you need to know more details, like print. If you just type it, you will get this outcome, right? Same outcome that we have seen earlier, but this is general help. To finish help, you have to press Ctrl and C together so that you will back in the prompt, right? Okay, now we have discussed how to get help. Now we'll learn a little bit more about the basics of Python. First of all, the variables and the constant value. Now usually when you take a numbers or strings or messages as it is, we call literal constant, which means they will not change when there's a program and you try to run them. These values, the numbers and the string, will not change. Now in Python, the numbers can be represented in various ways. Now for example, as a whole number or integer number like 5, or like floating point number like 1.23, right? A number with decimal places. And then scientific notation where we can put 9.25 e minus 3. So here means 10 to the power. So actually this 9.25 e minus 3 means 9.25 multiplied by 10 to the power minus 3. You can check. Now let me go back. So let me go to my shell. So I'm going to open the shell, right? And I can print, say 5. You will get 5, print 1.23. You get 1.23. Print, let's say 1 e2, meaning 1 into 10 to the power 2, which is 100. Earlier, but I think what we had is what? Let me check the value. 9.25 e minus 3. Right. Another way to represent number, 9.25 e minus 3. E means 10 to the power. So this is similar to 9.25 into 10 to the power minus 3, which we will get this. Any questions from that part? You are comfortable? Okay, so we'll move to the next one then. So that's about the numbers. Then string values. String means messages. Right now we have learned use of single quotes. Then the other point is you can even use double quotes. Right, I'll go back here. Right, I can say print with single quote. I can say hello world. Or else you can use double quotes. You'll get the same output. A quick question. Can you, one of you tell me why you need like two representations? First one we are using single quote. Second one we are using double quotes. Anyone in the program, can you tell me why you have these two different formats.
We can use intermediate version. For example, if we need a single quote within a word, we can give the double quote.
Exactly. Good point. Right. Now, for example, let's say I want to say something like it's me. Right. Now, if I start with the single quote, let's say it's me, there's some confusion. So if your string has a single quote, then you better go for double quotes. Right. So if I try this, we are getting an error. But if you use double quotes, right, you will not get any errors. Make sure that you start with double quotes, end with double quotes. You can say it's me. Similarly, if you want to use double quotes, then you can enclose using single quotes. Right. Now, for example, I can say hi. Right. I can say, okay, hi. Right. So it says double quotes. So if your string or message contains double quotes, then you better use single quotes. Right. Now that we have discussed numbers and then strings, right, we can move on to the next one, the numbers. Now in Python there are three types. We can have integer numbers, which means whole numbers, floating numbers, a number with decimal places, or else complex number. So those who already work in, for example, electrical, and then you know what complex numbers are. So let's briefly look at what those. Now when we say integer or int, meaning whole numbers, you can have it as 508, 67, negative, right? And you can have a larger version of this one as well. But we'll start with the three types: integers, float, and then complex. Second one, floating point. A number with the decimal point. Now you see this number is 508. This number is 508.0. So since we have 0.0, we are going to consider, Python is going to consider it as a floating point number. Okay, third one, complex numbers. So you have two components, real and imaginary, right? So that can be represented with, right, all the three different numbers. Right. So you can try this. Just try some numbers. We can say, okay, print 1, print, you can have 1.23. We can say print, let's say 1.23 e, right, let's say 3. Likewise we can represent. So depend on how we enter the value, Python is going to decide on the data type. Right. Okay. Right, let's get back to the next one. Now, how do you know this? Now, I told you the same number with or without decimal point, you are getting different data types. Right? So, when I say 508, Python treats it one way. If you say 500.0, it will print in another way, which might cause issues, problems. So we can use to learn how Python handles the type. Now if you have already done C or Java, sometimes you have to define it before use it. In Python you don't have to. You can simply use the numbers and variables, and it will be generated. Right? Now let me start with type. So if you say type 508, it will say it's a integer class. Int stand for integer class. Similarly, if I put type 508.0, which is same number, but the class is float. Right. Now similarly, if you use type 1 plus 5j, it says it's a complex number. And type, let's say hello, it says string value. Okay. If you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands? And if you have any questions, I'm warmly welcome to have 1 or 2 questions on this. Now what we did so far, we have learned how to use interactive mode, how to use script mode, and then we have started looking at print. Now we are going to look at how to use type. We have completed 3 functions so far: print, yes, and then we'll have type. And the third one is help. So we have learned 3 functions in Python. Okay, let's move on. You can, lower the hands. So the type function provides you the type of the object. Python is sometimes we call dynamic type, meaning like when you change the value, accordingly it will change the data type as well. Right? So here are some examples for you to try. First one is integer value. Second one is a floating point number. Third one, a complex number. Fourth one, string number. But if you try last one, you are getting an error. Can one of you explain me why we are getting an error here? How about Ajay? Any idea why we are getting error in the last statement?
Is it because that we have got the comma separation?
Yes, exactly. Now in Python, comma has a special meaning, right? So sometimes when you're writing numbers, we used to separate digits using commas, but in Python you should not do that. Right. So if you try, for example, type, let's say 10,000. So this will an error. Right. So you better remove any commas if you are working with numbers. Okay. Let's look at more on strings now. A strings is a set of characters like some message that we want to pass it. But you can even use Unicode. For example, you can try singular letters. Let me check. Right? So I type Unicode. but you need to use like a Unicode keyboard if you know that, otherwise just forget about this. But just want to show you like strings, it supports Unicode. So it supports Unicode. It could be English, it could be any other Unicode character is supported. So there are two representations we have already seen: single quotes and double quotes. And next one, you can use triple quotes. Okay, let me explain and come back to this point. Right. Now let's say I want to print something. Right. Let me say print. I want to talk about two things. Right. We can say, okay, welcome to Python programming, right? And let's try to enter multi-line string. You normally get an error, because if it is a single quote, it means we have to write it in a single line. Okay. Now if you want multi-line string, so use triple single quotes. So we can say print triple single quotes, and then you can use enter to separate. You press enter. You can end like this. So if you want to print multi-line strings in Python, right, remember you have to use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. So another representation is you can have triple double quotes. You see, triple single quotes, or you can use triple double quotes. So the representation of strings we discussed now, you can use single quotes, you can use double quotes. If you need multi-line string, use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. Okay, those who have finished, can you please raise your hands so that I know you have completed the task. If any of you having issues, please let me know so that I can help you. Right, Buddhini, I want to, Buddhini, can you hear me? Buddhini, can you hear me? Okay, no problem. Right. Okay, thanks everyone. Now that we have learned about the strings, so let's move forward. So multi-line strings, you can use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. Right. Can you try these two messages? These are two messages. First, I want you to print what's your name. It's one message. Second, I want to print the second message. Two prints commands. Right, if you are finished completing these two tasks, you can raise your hands. Okay, let's check the answers. So it's not that difficult now, right? But I want you to try both single quotes and double quotes, right? So let me start. Okay. So what we need, what's your name first? So I can say print. Since we have single quote inside, we can use double quotes. What's your name? Okay. Then print. We have to use single quotes, right? Because in dialog, you have double quotes. So if you want to print this, you have to use single quote. Now the question asks another one. Now, can you write what's your name using a single quote? So let me show you how to do this. Right, another way to print, use of single quotes. What's your name? You now see the problem, right? So with this one, Python confuses. So one remedy for this one is use backslash like this. We sometimes call escape characters, where you can use single quotes. So with escape character, what we do, we are going to ignore this single quote. It's not part of this print. Now similarly, if you want to use double quotes with dialog, so it's look like this, right? If you say double quotes, dialog, double quotes, which will give you an error. So which means you can use escape characters here as well. Yes. Using backslash, we can skip. Make a note of this one. It's not in the note, but for any message you can either use single quotes or double quotes. Right, okay. Finished? Right. Any questions on this one? You are comfortable up to this point? Yes? Right, okay. So let me go back there. I hope you are clear about this. Now let me talk about Python variables, right? And especially I want to start with variable names. Now what we have seen earlier is constant, like numbers and the strings. All these are, we can say, little constant, which means it will not change during the program execution. But we need variables to hold values temporarily. But when you want to create identifiers, which means variable names, there are a couple of rules you need to obey in Python. First one, the variable name should start with a letter or underscore character. That's all you can have. So it should be alphabet, or it should be an underscore. The remaining could be letters, could be numbers, could be underscore. Third point, this is case sensitive. If you type my name in simple and my name and in capital, Python treated these two are two different variables. Right? So the valid identifiers, for example, you can see here in green color, I is a variable. Here we have underscore, underscore, my underscore name. Yes, that's fine because we start with underscore. And after that we have underscore and, alphabets. Then we have name underscore 23. And fourth we have A1, B2 underscore C3. So all these are valid identifier names. But let's look at the invalid ones. If you have spaces like R2 things, no, you cannot have a variable name like this. This is spaced out like in a spacing with different parts of names. It's not allowed. Third one, we have my dash name. Dash is not allowed. Only underscore could be used. And last one, it uses string literals. Right? All these are invalid identifier names. Right. So look at these three statements. And can you suggest me what are the issues? Right, try these three and can you explain me what's wrong with this? Okay, let me explain one thing what this means. Like you have a left hand side, right hand side. This is actually checking whether the value in the left is equal to the value in the right. Yes, first statement. Let me use a shell here. Right? Now if you try this one, 76. You see, there's a problem with the variable naming in this example. You cannot start with a number that we have already discussed. So the first line, the error is the use of numbers. Okay, quick question. What is the issue with the second assignment? Yes, any volunteers please?
The dollar sign.
Yes. The name there is used is more dollar. You cannot use dollar. Only possible symbol is underscore. Right? So you have to remove dollar. Third one. Try this. It looks fine. We can say class. We can say dialog. Sorry, I missed a colon. It says syntax error. And if you look carefully, class has a different color as well. Green color. Right? But you cannot see why this class is not working. And there's a reason for that. The reason is you cannot use any name as the variable name. there are some names where you cannot use. Okay? Right, next one. Now the class there is we call a keyword. It's like an alphabet in Python. When you write programs in Python, these are the alphabet, or these are the commands that we will use. And class is a keyword. So make a note of here that, okay, right? Keywords cannot be used, right? Keynotes cannot be used. Right. Okay. Now let's look at assignment in Python. Right? Assignment in Python. So assignment means usually in an expression you have two sides and you assign some value. So in your left hand side usually you have the variable. The right hand side it could be an expression, meaning you can have value or you can have a operation, right? So that's the right hand side. Like when I say a equals 10. So in Python what will happen, it will create a space for a. And if you look at the data type of a, it says int. Because Python recognizes this as an integer value. Right. B equals A. So now what? If you say C equals A plus B, what will happen? Right? So if I say C equals A plus B, so we can say print C. So it's 20. Right. So we will discuss in detail how exactly this happens, like with the memory references. But that part I'm going to leave behind because today is the starting point. So I don't want to go into details. But if you make an assignment operator like this, so it's at right B equals A. So C equals A plus B, which means 10 plus 10, and C is 20. So that's how it works. Right. Try these ones. 3 assignments, greeting, n and pi. Right. I want you to print the message and find the data type. If I finish these 3, can you please raise your hands? So what happens? First one, we are assigning hello world to a variable named greeting. Then we are going to say n equals 17. Then we say pi equals 3.14. Right, let's try. I will take this side so that we can see both. Right. So first one is greeting. It's assignment. I'm going to say hello world. So this is assignment, which means now let's say if you want to know the type of greeting, right? So it says string value. So we can say print greeting. We can have n equals 17. So I can say type in and we can say print in. Similarly pi, and I know the type is floating point number. We can say pi. We are getting something like this. Hope everyone finishes this. Ajay finished? Amila? Asanka? Babono? Okay, thanks. I hope everyone actually finished. Thanks. Right, now that we have learned the basics, you can now look at statements as well, right? So when you talk about the Python statements, you can have a expression which is actually combination of the things that we have collected, right? So if you want to like add some two values, you can simply use adding 1 plus 1 will work. Or else we can use two variables. Whatever the content inside this, if it is supported, will be added. Third one, actually use of existing functions. Now len function actually tells you how many characters are inside the function. Right, okay. So if you take hello, right? So 1 plus 1 we have already done. I told you it will work as a calculator. And similarly, let's say a equals 10, b equals 20. And if you say a plus b, you will get 10 plus 20 is 30. Similarly, if you use a function like hello, right? So which will give you the length of the strings. That means number of characters inside this. Okay, right. Any questions up to this point? Are we clear about the very basics? Okay, right. Let's move on. Operators and operator precedence. Now we have seen we can use Python for calculations. Right? So there are couple of operators and operands. Right. Then operators, like some operations, like let's say addition. Then operands, the values. When you say 2 plus 3, for example. Yes, when you say 2 plus 3, for example. Right. So these are operands. And here, this operator, right, actually takes these two operands and then add those two values. Okay, so let's look at some arithmetic operations which we need when you perform calculations, right? So we will have couple of operators we used to familiar with, classical addition, subtraction, multiplication, division works, and then we have exponentiation, integer division, and modular division. So let me show you each of these. So let me go here, right, and let's first add two numbers. You can type any two numbers. Right, you just subtract and see. Right, third one is multiplication. Right, multiplication also the same. So we can say 2 into 3. Division also the same. 10 divided by 3. To the power. Exponentiation. 2 into 10. So it says 2 to the power 10 is 1024. Then 10 let me put 10 integer division 3. Now what do you mean by integer division here? It will left with only the integer value. So let's see. Originally when you divide 10 by 3 you are getting 3.33. Now what if you get only 3? So idea of integer division is right, then we can have remainder. Now for example 10, if I put it like this, you divide 10 by 2, get the remaining value, it's 0. If that is the case, so in integer division we will get the integer value, then we will get remainder using modular division. Right? All the operators are listed here. So if I put like this, what is the output? Tell me. So I'm going to say 2 plus 3 divided by 5. Yes. Can you tell me what is the answer for this one? Yes?
2.6. 2.6.
Yes, it's 2.6. Now what happened? What is the steps of solving this one? We have division first and then addition, right? Okay, good. Now let's say I want to add 2 and 3 before I divide by 5. What should I do?
Brackets.
Yes, we have to put brackets between 2 and 3. So when you put a bracket, what happens? It first work out inside the bracket. So which means we have to perform addition between 2 by 3. Which means 5, then you will get 1. So, what we need to highlight here, odd is important, right? So, sometimes we call PEMDAS, right? Parenthesis, exponentiation, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So, this is from highest to lowest. Now likewise, if you take all the operators, it will evaluate usually from left to right, right? But except for this one, I will explain. When you have something like this, let's say 3 into 10 divided by 6, which operation you are going to perform first? Is it multiplication or is it division?
It doesn't matter.
Just doesn't matter. But usually, I think in programming languages also define. If you have the same precedence, usually it will go from left to right. So that's what we used to say. Which means, yes, 3 into 10 is 30. 30 divided by 6 is 5. Except one case, exponentiation, right? So if you put this, what is the outcome? Now there are two ways you can try. One way you can left to right. That means 2 to the power 3 is 8, 8 to the power 2 is 64. But remember, right, this will work from right to left. So that's why we are getting 512. So which means, first of all, it works on this one. So this is to say 3 to the power 2, which means 9. So that means 2 to the power 9, that is 512. So if you want to first performs 2 to the power 3, then you have to use brackets. So if you want to put brackets like this, then it will perform what is inside the brackets. 2 to the power 3, that is 8 to the power 2, that is 64. Make a note of this. So we can say the precedence is stated like this, except, and then if you have the same precedence, you can go from left to right, but not the other side. Okay, now that we have completed this, right, you can try this, right? You can try all this. Again, I will share this with you once I finish the session. And so the next session we are going to discuss, but first of all, try by your hand, try to understand how it works. Then try your answers using Python. So that's what I recommend for you to work with. Now, for example, so what is the answer for this one? You can try. Okay, so today, if I summarize, we have discussed why Python and how Python is used in different fields. Very briefly we discussed, and then we discussed couple of functions, starting with print, help, and then type. Right. So what you could do is you can try this at home, and tomorrow session we can discuss the answers. Right. Again, you don't have to take down this. I will share the slide after finishing the session. Right. So that's about the precedence. Last thing I want to discuss about operations on strings. Okay, wait, now it's kind of confusing, isn't it? Now let's look at here. Numbers are okay. We can add numbers, right? And we can multiply the numbers, right? Likewise, can we do with string value? So this is a string, right? It's a number, but it's string because you have double quotes. We cannot subtract like this. It will give you an error. Because one side you have a string value, other side you have a number. So you cannot perform most of these general operations. Except two cases. First one, two strings. Like, let's say banana. This is the example given in the handout. Nut bread. So you are adding two strings together, which will you get one thing. Similarly, if you use two numbers, let's say 10 plus 20, 10 plus 20, yes, it's not really adding actually. If you have two strings, this is what we call concatenation. You just combine the two strings. So it's not really addition here. But make a note of this one, important one. Second one, if you have a string, let's say fun, you multiply by 3, this is called repetition. You have a string, one side, the other side you have a number. It will repeat the string for the number you have put it there. Now this is interesting. Early days when you have like textual graphical interfaces, the simple technique is you repeat. Let's take some character, let me lay dash, and let's say multiply by 30. You will get dash line like this. Take underscore for example, multiply by 30, you will get a line. Take a star, multiply by 30, you will get patterns like this. You see? So early days before we have graphical user interfaces, this is the trick that we have used. Okay, so with that one, I would like to conclude the session for today, right? But before finish, I would like to know whether am I too slow when I explaining things, or is it too simple now? I told you, like, I'm going from very beginning, that's why I went like this. Or are you fine with this? What do you think about the speed?
For me, this is good. Speed is good.
Anyone feeling that I am going too slow? Okay, fine. Right. I'll have a feedback form later on, but for the time being, remember, we will have quizzes, which means whatever we have discussed today's session will be evaluated in the first few minutes in the next session, right? So keep this in mind, try and enjoy and have fun with Python programming. We will have very advanced things coming on next couple of sessions, but this one is a very simple one. Make sure that you practice and come for the next session. Okay, having said that, let's stop for today and hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.